Okay, let's see. Let's get the chat going up. Here we go. Okay, we're live, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Let me make sure I'm not blowing away everybody. Looks like I'm clipping a little bit. Let's go ahead and turn that down. How's the audio and visuals? Everything good? Excellent. Mr. Powers is in the house. David, thank you for coming. ASJ Designs. Can't put a name to the company. ASJ. Arjun? Not sure. Or Arlen? Sorry. Excellent. Yeah, so today we're going to be going over, I hemmed and hawed, I've had a few people that, wanted to do a live stream on Arc, which is the browser that I use. And I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm ho-hum about the browser. I wish I could find something else, but I do like its features. But anyway, yeah. So today we are going to Marcelo, Sean. Thanks for popping in. I thought there's a lot of hoopla now about Twig, right? And I don't think I've, I didn't even look it up, but I don't think I've done a live stream on just Twig, right? We've talked about it a lot. Obviously, Feeds and Total CMS 3 use it, so you've probably, seen a lot of that. But yeah, I thought it would be fun to kind of just go through Twig and learn a little bit, okay? And obviously, we will try to apply what we could do with Twig in Feeds and Total CMS. There's some limitations to what we could do inside Feeds. Okay, there's pretty much none in Total CMS 3. Okay, but we'll go over that when the time comes, so that you guys can know what you can and cannot do inside Twig with Feeds. Okay, Mr. Fox, thanks for coming in. Mr. Roma. Dr. Bob. Okay, so, hey, well, Dr. Bob's here, and he's, one thing that is awesome about Twig, okay, is that, yeah, ChatGPT and OpenAI knows all about it. And Bob here has done some pretty crazy stuff with Twig, and Total CMS 3, mostly purely with ChatGPT. So, that's a great thing, right? So, yeah, if you don't think you have the skills, or you want to do something maybe a little bit more advanced, then yeah, maybe have a look at ChatGPT and have it help you out. Like I said, he's done some pretty crazy stuff, that I was like, whoa, look at that. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. I did realize that my little automation did not change my screen resolution. So I'm sorry about that. Normally when I start the live stream, I have like a little automation, and it looks like it didn't change my screen resolution. So everything might be a little smaller. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff on, in the browser today though. So maybe if I can just increase the browser size. Okay. Actually interesting. I was zoomed out. That actually answers why a lot of the stuff I was looking at was like, man, this stuff's small. I had everything at 90%. Okay, interesting. Here, I can go a little bit bigger. Here, we can go a little bit bigger just so we can have lots of screen real estate. We got the screen real estate here. Might as well use it. Okay. So we're going to start completely outside of RapidWeaver, okay, or stacks. And I'm going to try to dive into Twig and just play around with Twig itself for a little bit. And then we'll dive into stacks a little bit and show you some of that. Now, Twig is a templating language. We'll stick with that because I know if I say programming language, it's going to scare some people. Okay. It is a language built with PHP, which is interesting, right? It's not like developed from scratch in C or Rust or anything like that. It's It is a subset of PHP, which actually means if you've ever been exposed to PHP, you'll probably see a lot of parallels because it is a PHP-based language. Some people have done ports of it to different programming languages now, but yeah, it is built on top of PHP. And this is the documentation website. It's twig.symfony.com. Okay. So, or you can just Google Twig and this will probably be one of the top results there. We're going to be going through a lot of this today, just kind of perusing through. I'm not going to go through every single one of these things, but just to kind of, we'll dive through some of this to kind of show you what we can do. Okay. Another cool site that I have bookmarked that I use sometimes to just kind of play around with ideas that I have and things I want to play is this Twig Playground site. It is, what is the URL? Here, I'll put this in the chat. twig.stapps.io. I have no clue who created this and how long it will be online, but there it is. Actually, let me put the link to the actual docs on there as well, just so everybody has that. Okay. What's kind of cool with this is you can kind of play around with Twig here, and then click render, right? So I can modify the Twig, and then click render, and it modifies. You can see what it outputs down here. Okay, it actually kind of cool. It shows you what the HTML is outputted and what the actual rendered HTML looks like. It's kind of a cool little thing. Okay. So, Twig. What is it? Well, actually, let's go into the, I think, I was planning on maybe doing a little bit of preparing before this, but obviously always something has to happen technically before a live stream, right? And, before this live stream, Restream decided my account got put down to a free plan for some reason somehow. And it was putting a branded thing on top of the stream. And I was like, no. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't have a big, Restream, logo across my face during my live stream. So that took 20 minutes or so of my time, 35 minutes ago. So yeah, that was fun. Let's see. I want to get into, I don't want to get into the scary stuff. I want to try to, show, let's do Twig for template designers here. Actually, let's just go to this playground. I think this playground is kind of enough to show us, what we want. Now, Twig is, as I said earlier, actually, before I dive in, hopefully I won't forget to re-screen share. I'll try to remember. Screen share. Okay. Twig is a templating language. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Okay. Technically what it does is it takes data from outside. Okay. Whether or not it could be a CMS or a CSV file or a database or whatever. Okay. And it takes that data and injects it into an HTML page. Okay. Now, the reason it's a template is because essentially when we use Twig, we're creating a template that can be applied to any data, right? So, for example, let's take Total CMS. Let's even look at version 1, right? If you've ever used Total CMS blog, you know that you create a blog page, right? You create one blog page, and then that one blog page is used to apply to any blog post that you view on the website, right? So that one page is actually a template. Does that make sense, right? So we create a template of what I want my blog page to look like, and then once I have all my data, I then can apply any data that template was designed for to the page, right? For example, on Weaverspace, it doesn't matter. I have the product pages for every single stack. There is one page in my project file, And no matter which product which product you look at on my webpage, it takes that template, which uses Twig, and then it applies the data to it. But to the end user, they think it's a completely different web page. They don't know, right? So essentially with Twig, we're able to build not just websites, but website templates that we can then apply data to. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. And so let's dive into screen sharing. I remembered. Haha. Okay. And so up here, don't worry about this. This is just a way of representing data in this playground. Okay. So here we just have a bit of text. It's called demo, and we have some items, and each item has a name attribute. Okay. So if I have text, I think in here I can even type my own stuff. I can be like, let's go demo. All right, or we'll do something. Whatever. I'll just say hello. Okay. And then we're gonna do hello from the live stream. Okay. So I've created this other bit of data called hello, and the contents of it, is hello from the live stream. Okay. And then if I wanted to do over down here, if I do H2, okay, I can do hello. All right, and if we render this, all right, what we'll see now is, so this is my data. Again, in this case, we're having data as JSON just because it's kind of a programmery thing to do. Okay. But this could be data in a CSV file or a database or whatever. Okay. And then here is my template. Okay. Now I know we're all used to dragging and dropping of stacks onto a page and stuff like that. But here, we have it in H1. So think of this as like a header stack. And inside there, in order to inject this data, let's look at this H2 example here. Okay. Actually, let me put up my little, this guy here. All right. Allow. Okay. So here I have my H2, hello H2, right? And if we notice that this syntax here, okay, what we have is these little curly brackets, or sometimes they're called mustaches. Funny enough, Twig, it was based off the very first original templating language that was called Mustache. Okay, Total CMS 1 actually uses Mustache to create things like the blog list and whatnot. But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Twig takes Mustache and it basically puts it on steroids. Okay, but the syntax is very similar. That's why if you've ever used something like the blog list and you use some of the macros in there, they look very similar to Twig. They look exactly the same as Twig. However, it's because Twig kind of inherited from Mustache. Mustache did a lot of great things, but it had a lot of limitations. And Twig overcomes a lot of that. Okay. So here, we use this little mustache syntax, okay, where we have two curly braces and then the name of my data. Okay. In this case, I use the word hello, and that's because I said the word hello is hello from the live stream. Okay. So, in this, you would have, either your database field or the column in your CSV file or whatever, right? But you're going to have something that identifies what that data is, and put that inside of the curly braces. Now, if we look up here at the H1, you'll notice that it is text. Okay, so it's going into my data and it's bringing in text, which in this case is just the word demo. Okay, and then it has this little thing called a pipe, and then it does title. Okay, and what you'll notice here is what that does, and we'll dive into this in a little bit. This is something called a Twig filter. And what this does is it titleizes the text. So if you look over here, demo is all lowercase. However, the title filter, basically what that does is it will make every first letter in a word uppercase, right? So if I go into let's go into hello here, and I go pipe title, Okay, and let's render that. Okay, you'll notice now in here it goes hello from the live stream, where even all the words, the first letter of every word is titleized. Okay, so these are something called filters. We'll dive into some of those cool filters and things that we can do there. Okay, you can actually do a lot of stuff into here. You can actually do like pipe, and you can actually filter multiple filters at a time, which is kind of cool. My sound is muted. No one has said that. Anybody else? I see in the chat that someone says I am muted. Do you guys not hear me? Hello? Is that better? Am I not muted anymore? Not sure what happened there. Hello? Can I get confirmation in the chat that you guys can hear me? I can hear you. Okay. Well, people say they can hear me. Okay, so we're going to keep on going. All right, I'll up my gain. Hopefully the sound gets better. All right. Okay. So again, going back to here. So these are called filters. There's also things called functions. We'll go into those in a little bit. Okay. Now, you'll notice here that I have something called items. Okay, which is something that's an array. Okay, and what's cool is, in Twig we can actually like loop through this data. So, items isn't just a bit of text, right? It's a list of little objects where each one, in this case, has a name. Okay. So here we can see in this context here, I'm starting off, UL is a bullet list. Okay, it is an unordered list in HTML. And here we go for items in items. Okay, so basically we're saying this is an array of items, again, where each item has a name. So this is just a syntax to loop through all my items. So we're going to go through every single item, and inside my loop, I'm going to assign each one to the word item. And then inside there, I'm going to create a bullet list where it is item.name. Okay. Now, I know this is where Twig kind of blurs the lines of a templating language with a little bit of programming. Okay. So for some of you, I know this is probably going to stretch your brains just a tad. Okay. Because this does look like programming, right? We're looping through something. And but hopefully it's pretty readable, right? So we're saying for an item in items, create a list item that is item.name. Okay. Now, if I were to go into here and say, I don't know, we'll do age. Okay. Age 10. Okay, and over here, we're going to do age 20. Okay. So I have a name and an age. Okay. And so in here, if I did name, and then let's just go ahead and copy this, right? I can do item.age, and now I can render this. Okay. And what we'll see now is I've modified my template to say, hey, for each of these, we'll loop through it. I want my name dash age. Okay. And here we'll look at the raw output of the HTML. That's exactly what we have. We have a list item that has a dash and then the age. Okay. A has 10, B has 20. And that's what we see here. And obviously the rendered HTML looks like a bulleted list. Pretty cool. Now, for advanced users out there, we could also do something something like we can add like a class to something, right? So I could be like item dot name. Oops. Right? And maybe I do name dash item dot name. And if we render that, we'll see now that I can now create my template. Now, that's not something you see in the rendered HTML, but then you can use something like CSS or swatches, right? Based on these names, right? Or these classes, right? Pretty cool, right? So these allow us to really generate a template that then our data gets applied to. Okay. I think that was a decent kind of introduction to Twig. Again, the data in this example is JSON, but it could be a CSV file or anything. Okay. Here we are showing you how we create a template and then how that data is applied to that template to render in HTML, right? And obviously that HTML gets rendered and we can see what it looks like over here. Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. I know a lot of you can hear me now, which is nice. Okay. Want to make sure. Okay. I want to make sure you guys aren't hearing me twice, though. Okay. There we go. Okay. Let's go into the docs now. Let's start. So in the docs, there is this thing called Twig for template designers. It's actually a really nice overview of how you as a designer can use Twig. Okay. Now, again, we're going to be looking this in terms of raw HTML. And then soon we'll dive into stacks and then kind of see how, again, what we're looking at here is what is under the hood of stacks. And I always am a proponent of, if you understand what is under the hood, then you'll understand how to use the stacks better. Because my goal is to make sure that you guys are better web designers. And I'm a huge proponent of understanding under the hood will make you a better designer. Okay, so let's dive into this. We're not going to read through this. And this is really big for me. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Sorry. Okay. We're not going to spend too much time on setting variables. On Twig, you can like create your own variables and stuff like that. We're not going to spend too much time on that today. We're going to focus mostly on outputting data. Okay. Here's an example where we have a name, and then we have strip tags and title. Like this, remember how I said earlier how we could have multiple filters here? Okay. This strip tags and the title, those are filters. And you can just string them one after another to do multiple operations on a text. So in this case, if name contained any HTML, okay, strip tags would remove any HTML. And then the title tag would then, as we saw earlier, sorry, I had to sneeze. Something was tickling my nose. The title would then case that, okay, titleize it. Steven says a F6 list stack would make it easier to use Twig to make an unordered list. 100%. Okay. We'll dive into the stacks part pretty soon. Okay. Now here is the ability to, now what we've dealt with a lot is dealing with string, like text data. Okay. Here's an example where list, this is an array. Okay. For example, let's say in blog you have tags, and I want to, what join would do is it would join all of those into one string. So it would join all the list items. Here, for fun, let's go ahead and explain what that is. So we're going to go into here. I'm going to create a list. Okay. I forgot, I got to do quotes in here. And let's just create a list of, let's do Sean and Chris and Scott. Okay. And Bill. Why not? All right. So there I've created a list of names here. Okay. So here I have a list that has Sean, Chris, Scott, and Bill. Okay. And just so I don't have to retype it, I'm just going to copy this. Okay. And let's say below this, this list here, I'm just going to do in paragraphs. We're going to paste that in. So I'm going to create a paragraph where I take my list. And again, my list is these list of people. Okay. List of names. And I'm going to join them together. Okay. List is an array here. And then let's go ahead and render this. And what we'll see is what it did is it took Sean, Chris, Scott, and Bill, and it joined them with a comma. Not only that, it actually joined them with a comma space. If you notice here, it's comma space. If I didn't have that space here, let's re-render that. You'll see that you kind of want spaces after our comma, right? So you have to do join comma space. So all it does is after each one, it puts a comma space. Pretty cool, right? Example of join. Okay. We saw functions where we can actually go ahead and well, we didn't see functions. Here's an example of a for loop. In this case, range is a function. And it basically allows, range is a special one that allows you to, it's kind of useful in for loops maybe. Like if you want to do something 3 times, you can say from 0 to 3, do this. So you could do something a certain number of times. Okay. Functions also have named arguments, and we'll see these when we look at some individual functions. We're going to skip around and do some things. And here, like here's an example, convert encoding is a function that you can do. So you can take your data and then encode it from UTF to, Japanese, let's say. Okay. Probably not something I can't see a use case personally for that, but there we go. Okay. There is a date function though, right? Which is going to be very popular and very good to know. And there are stacks that use these too, right? But yeah, here we can do a date and then we can pass it the time zone. So like here in this case, we could do now pipe here. Let's look at this. So let's do now. We're going to go into the playground. I think this is a fun one to do. Okay. Oops, did I not copy that? I thought I copied it. We're going to render that. Oops. What did I do? What did I break? Now pipe date time zone. I'm not sure what version of Twig this service is using. Interesting. Okay. Found a little quirk. I think that's a quirk of this playground site. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, what this would do, this would allow you to take now and then create a date out of that with the time zone of Europe, Paris, right? Okay, you can even give it a specific date format. Here, let's try this one. Let's see if that works there. Try that one. It doesn't like that either. Arguments will be separated by punctuation value. Okay. I think they're running an older version that doesn't support the named parameters. There we go. Okay. So here we've created now. So right now it is 21:01 in Paris. Okay. So the version of Twig that they're running in the background of this playground site doesn't support the named parameters. That was something added relatively recently. Okay. But control structures. We talked about for loops. I'm not going to dive into that again. But something I didn't show off is you could do if logic, right? So we can say, if users is, pipe length, so how many users are there, is greater than 0, then show this, right? So we can do a lot of really cool conditional statements now based on logic, right? So if name equals Bob, display this, right? Comments, you can inject your own comments into Twig. Let's see. We're not going to go to including in templates and inheritance. Escaping, it's fine. All right. You know, math, there's a lot of math stuff that we can do. Okay. Obviously, you can do a lot of math. So you could be like, 1 + 2 or age times 2 or, whatever. You can do a lot of math, even with variables, right? So here for fun, let's go ahead in this playground and I'm going to do age +5. Okay. So let's render that. And what we'll notice now is it has A = 15, B = 25, right? So just to show you that you can do math directly inside Twig, right? Which is pretty cool. Oops. All right, let's dive into, I think that gives us a nice little, I think what I've shown you now is probably like 95% of or more of what you're ever going to need in Twig. Okay. So let's go back to the main docs page. Okay. And actually, I think you might want to peruse some of this. I think I remember this Twig's recipes has some interesting stuff in here that you can learn. We're not going to dive through this, but this has some pretty cool stuff. Maybe slightly more advanced. Okay. But yeah. Let's dive through some of these. Okay. So their docs are broken up into various parts of the language. Okay. And at first we have tags. Okay. And we've seen a couple tags already. I have to admit, I don't really love the term tags for these, but whatever. It is like the if statement, right? So it's something like if something, right? And then we can go back and we have, the for loop. Okay, so there's a lot of these things. As I said earlier, you can you can create your own variables if you need to, right? So, you can create your own variables within Twig. I think a lot of the stuff that you're going to use the most of is if, set, if you want to do variable stuff, and for, okay? A lot of this other stuff is quite advanced, probably not stuff you're going to use. Something that Total CMS uses quite regularly for you is something called macros, where you can like create little your own little functions, let's say, for Total for Twig, not for Total CMS, for Twig. So really cool stuff, some advanced stuff there. If you want to get into macros, it's kind of cool, a lot of fun there. Let's dive into a lot of the things that I think are going to be more interesting. Okay, these filters are super useful. Okay, and these are the ones where you can like pipe. You can modify variables on the fly. We've seen a few of these already. We've seen the join one where I took join requires that you run this on a list. So in here we have 1, 2, 3. And we join it. And what that does is it, by default, it just puts them together. Okay. But you can join them by, as we saw, with a comma. Okay. It even has a cool second argument where you can do 1, 2, and 3. Okay. The Twig docs are really great. They have a lot of really good user-friendly real-world examples. Okay. That really show you the syntax and what that actually returns. Okay. I really like how they've organized these Twig docs. Okay. So we've seen join. Let's see. I'll dive through some of these. ABS is the absolute value. So if you're doing some math stuff, that obviously turns -5 into 5. Okay. Let's look at some stuff that I think is going to be useful. First is interesting. If you do have a list of things and you want the first item, right? So if I have a list, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I want the first item, this pipe first will output the first item, in this case 1, okay, which is cool. Okay. There's also a pipe last, which, funny enough, gives you the last item, okay, as you might predict. Length is going to be useful. That's, again, another one for list or arrays that will give you the how many items are in there. Okay. let's see, format. This one is, I don't think that one's going to be too terribly useful. Replace. This one will be useful. Okay. Potentially, right? I mean, kind of advanced where you might want to, here it's taking a string and then it's replacing one thing with another thing. Okay. So here it's going to replace this with fruit and that with oranges, right? So that could be useful, right? There's a lot of really powerful stuff in here. Let's see, strip tags is useful. So if you're, let's say you have a variable that has HTML in it. Okay. So for example, in my place, in this, let's say my hello here had, HTML in it. Okay. So in this case here, my hello contains HTML. And if I did strip tags and render that, okay, we'll notice that it has stripped the HTML. If I remove that and render, you'll see that what it does is, okay, actually this is interesting. Okay. What you'll notice is it actually didn't, because this contains HTML by default, it will actually literally type out the HTML onto the page. But what if I don't want that? What if I want the raw HTML to be there? So I can do pipe raw, which is another filter that we haven't got to yet. Okay. And at that point, it will, if you look at the raw output here, I have my H2 and then my paragraph tags. Okay. So if your content contains HTML and you want that HTML to be displayed, you might need to have pipe raw. Okay. I will say in things like Total CMS, I've flipped that default in Twig so that raw is outputted by default. Whereas the default behavior of Twig is to encode the HTML for you on the page. And then again, we saw strip tags. Okay. So if we render that, then at this point, the tags are completely stripped. Okay. I'm not going to go through all of these because, we are running. I just noticed the time. I've been taking up a lot of it. So lower, okay, is going to be a useful one to make something all lowercase. Okay. Slug. That could be useful if you want to, kind of turn some sort of weird string that contains a lot of characters into something that is ASCII based. Okay. Very useful. Time zone stuff, URL encoding. Earlier today, or yesterday, someone asked about converting Markdown. Their data contained Markdown, and they needed to output the HTML from that Markdown. And essentially, this Markdown to HTML filter will do that for you. Okay, so you can do, you would just do pipe Markdown to HTML. I won't try to do that for you right now, but you kind of get it how the filters work. Round sorting. There's a lot of really cool stuff where you can do sorts and filters of arrays. I thought filter somewhere. Filter might be a function. Okay. Shuffling. Trimming. This is going to be useful if you want to kind of trim blank space at the beginning and end of a line. Trimming is useful. Okay. There's a lot of other stuff like making stuff lowercase, uppercase, kind of manipulating the data. Here's capitalize, which will capitalize the first letter in a sentence, right? Which is nice. So there's a lot of really useful functions here that we can use to manipulate data. Next up is functions. Okay. I think the most useful function by far is going to be date, right? A lot of people want to use dates and output dates in a particular format with a specific time zone, so on and so forth. That's exactly what this does. Okay. And it's pretty cool. As you see, you can do stuff like date minus 2 days, which means the current date minus 2 days. So you can do a lot of really cool math, date math in here as well, which is pretty slick. Okay. I will say that there are some functions in here. Let's see, where would I find one? I've added most of them into feeds and even more of them into total CMS. But for example, okay, let's take this markdown one. Okay. They used to say, okay, if you ever look at a piece of doc, okay, and you see that it requires this install, it means it's not a base part of Twig, and it needs to be an extra extension that is installed. I know I have installed the Markdown extension for Twig, okay? So I know that that is there in feeds. It is also there in Total CMS. There's a big one. I think it was the international extension. Was it time zone name? Yes. Okay. If you see anything in the docs that requires this Twig International extra, that is not in feeds. I don't remember if I added it to Total CMS. The reason that it's not in feeds is it is absolutely ginormous. Like, it is a very large extension that I would get a lot of hate mail for the amount of files that would have to be published. Okay. So yeah, because of that, this international extension, I think this is one of the only ones that I did not install. Because again, it was just so much information. Because essentially it just has all the international data for like every known language out there for everything. And yeah, it was just big, very, very big. So the international extension is not in feeds, or I don't remember if it's in Total CMS. It might be. It's possible. I don't remember. Okay. Let's see if I have any questions here. Reminds me of coding in BASIC. Oh yeah. You know, it is. It's a very simple programming language, templating language. Okay. Okay. I'm not going to go through a lot of these other things here. Please peruse this. What I've shown you already can get you very far, but there's a lot more here, obviously. Okay. I can't believe I've already gone for 45 minutes on just Twig, and we've never dove into stacks yet. So without further ado, let's dive into stacks and kind of show you what we can do here. I will start off with feeds. Okay. And the reason I'm going to start off with feeds is because one of the reasons I even released feeds to begin with, okay, was because I wanted to test to see how you guys would like Twig. I thought it was a really interesting concept, and I thought it was a really brilliant way of allowing us to create more rich web pages. And I knew I wanted to use Twig in Total CMS 3, but I wasn't sure how. Again, all this was for Total CMS 3. And I wanted to see how you guys would react to that, because it was going to be such a core part of the CMS. So I released feeds to make you all guinea pigs to see how you would respond to Twig. And luckily, I think it's been an overwhelming success. Feeds is an immensely popular stack. And you guys have done some amazing stuff, and I think you guys have really loved what Twig can do. Okay, so let's dive into how Twig is used inside of feeds, and then we'll go the extra step a little bit, and we'll give a sneak peek a little bit on Total CMS 3. Okay, so here we're just going to do some simple examples. I know a lot of you are already familiar with feeds. Okay, so here I'm just using CSV, right? And here I have title and image, okay? And then inside I'm creating a grid. So basically, okay, let's think of this. What is this? Okay, I have a block grid. Now, normally when I have a block grid, okay, let's think of what we're doing here. I want a block grid. And normally when you have a block grid, you're just going to create, you're going to add in some content in here. And let's just say it's A. Okay. And if I want multiple things, I want to create multiple items in my block grid. Okay. But What if each of these items in the block grid, I mean, they're all the same. The only thing that changes is maybe the image and some text content, right? So why am I going to worry about duplicating all of these things, typing in my text, dragging an image in so that each of these now has to be managed individually? Not very efficient, right? I mean, it gets the job done, okay? But if we ever wanted to make changes, I'd have to go and decide each and every one of these, make the changes, right? And we're about efficiency here. We want to be efficient. So what Feeds does is, you'll notice inside block grid, I have a Feeds stack. And then whatever I add, whatever stacks I add into Feeds, Feeds is going to, again, I'm creating a template here, just as we learned in that Twig playground earlier, okay? I'm creating a template of what I want to display. Okay? Again, this is just a stacks version of what we saw in that playground. So in here, I have a block grid cell, and Feeds, for every single item in my data, it's going to create a new block grid cell. Okay? Then in the header, it's going to put in the title, and in the picture, in here, you'll notice the image URL, it's going to put the image. Now my data is simple, it only has title and image. Okay? But when we preview this, and my images don't exist online, great job, Joe. But if they did exist online, I'm not even going to try to figure out where they are online. Okay. The images don't exist online. I'm sorry. Okay. But if you notice, it created 3 data points because that's the data that was contained inside of the CSV file. Again, Feeds allows us to not only use CSVs, but we can have all kinds of data feeds, right? All kinds of really cool stuff. JSON feeds, RSS feeds, sitemaps. We can do all total CMS integration, databases, all kinds of stuff. Okay. So yeah, Feeds basically takes the data from wherever you have it, and then we'll apply that data to the template that we've added here. And if you look, all of this looks very similar, right? This is just the Twig syntax. I can do pipe lower in here, and that will make all of those lowercase. Okay, so we can use all of those cool filter tricks and all that stuff that we can use that we learned from the Twig docs, all inside of Feeds. Okay. Now, Feeds isn't a perfect implementation. As I told you, it was a guinea pig for what I wanted to do in Total CMS 3. Okay. What are those limitations? It's essentially how it processes the data as a whole. Okay. Let me go ahead and bring back this, okay. Now we looked at Twig for loops, right? Okay. So Twig does have native for loops built in, so that you can loop through stuff, but Feeds does that part for you, right? Feeds loops through everything for you. Okay. But for most of the cases, that's perfectly fine. Okay. But in each iteration of the loop, the Twig within Feeds doesn't know about the data at a global level, if that makes any sense, right? Remember how we did that? Oh, let's go to that playground, right? Okay. So remember how we had these items, okay? And each item has a name and an age, okay? And then we did this for loop, and then I'm utilizing the name and the age inside of this for loop. Now, if you notice, this has item.name, item.age. However, in Feeds, there is no item.title here. It's just title. Okay. And I did that on purpose in Feeds because I wanted again, this was our first introduction to Twig, and I wanted to make it as simple as possible. And having that like item dot something, I thought was just a little bit easier if we just have title instead of item.title or data.title or whatever, right? Just having just title in there made sense. But in order for me to do that, I kind of had to remove that global scope. Okay. So this might not make sense to some of you, what I mean by that, but yeah, we can't do that. We can't like, get data globally. Like you can't get to the total number of items in your feed, let's say. I have since added some stuff to feeds to actually get that. I think I added a count or something like that. Okay. But for the most part, like you can't react on the data loop itself. Like I can't do a join on it and stuff like that and do a comma delimited list. Now you can within their data, but not as a data as a whole. I think I'm not explaining that properly. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. We'll see that. However, I've learned from that, and Total CMS 3 has no limitations. Okay. It is raw and we have access to everything. Okay. Which is really cool. Now inside feeds, before we dive into Total CMS 3, I do want to show a couple other cool things. Where is it? Here, up here. In here, you'll notice there is a Twig cheat sheet in feeds. Okay. You can kind of drag that up and it kind of gives you some examples on things that you could do. Okay. As you see, I show some useful text manipulation. I show how you could do like a comma delimited list on stuff, how to do some date formatting. So if you ever just want a quick little cheat sheet, there is a Twig cheat sheet baked into feeds. Okay. There is also if conditions, right? So you can take this if condition and it just kind of does the syntax for you, right? Now let's, for fun, let's just do full width edit mode. Okay. So here we have a Twig if condition where I can say if, title, equals, I don't know, golden or something like that. Right. And then basically if that is, then you can, go ahead and add content into there, and this content will only be displayed if that condition exists. Okay. So there's a lot of really cool stuff, features that have been added to feeds to help you use Twig better or make it easier for you to use Twig. There is also a for loop, okay? And the for loop isn't useful for things like CSV, okay? Because that CSV really only contains string data, okay? But some data feeds, such as maybe an RSS feed or the Total CMS blog integration, you can loop through some items, okay? But yeah, for the most part, if you're using just like straight database or straight CSV stuff, the for loop probably isn't going to be too terribly useful, okay? Then let's see what else. Yeah, I think those are the two super useful ones. Obviously, I'm not going to go into a lot of the sorting and filtering that you can do. That's just a feature of feeds, not necessarily of Twig, okay? Even though Twig does have those features. So yeah, let's dive into, let me see if there's any other questions. All right, looks like I got some feeds love in the chat. Could we load these extensions if we needed them? No, you cannot. Yeah, nope. I say no. I mean, it'd be quite technical for you to do that. And you'd have to have stuff installed on your server. Yeah, it's technically it's possible. I don't know, maybe we can come up with something like that in the future. But I'm pretty sure, like I said earlier, Total CMS, it's pretty large. And I think I installed most of the extensions. If you really need an extension that isn't there, let me know. We can try to come up with something. Okay. All right. Let's dive into Total CMS 3. I'm going to do that. We're actually just going to, we're going to go into, now something that's cool about Total CMS 3, okay, is actually, let's just go into here. And I'm running a unreleased version right now, so hopefully it's going to work. Let's see. I did add some cool stuff last night to T3. I've added Total CMS 3 has a lot of custom extensions that I've built on top of Twig to allow us to do all kinds of stuff. Okay. So let's see. For example, like now you guys are going to be using stacks to do a lot of this stuff, but like you can use Twig to add a blog form. If you want just a blog form, boom, there you go. It's just form.blog form. Boom, you have a form on the page, right? So yeah, I have a ton of custom, very large suite of custom Twig extensions that you can use. There's also a lot of form patterns. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. And it's documented here. I don't have a lot of talks. It's mostly just examples of what you can do. But like you can add your own custom fields. You can add all kinds of stuff. Okay, and that's in the forms. So there's a huge forms extension for Total CMS that allows you to add, like here's how you can add a image form with custom size rules and stuff like that, all in Twig. And guess what? The stacks that you add to the page, all that those stacks do under the hood is implement these Twig functions, which is kind of cool. So the stacks themselves for Total CMS 3, all they do is implement Twig. And then the Total CMS application that I've built, takes those and obviously, with this custom extension does all the magic and generates the forms that we need. Okay. But all of this stuff that you're using inside of a stack doesn't even implement HTML. It implements Twig, and then the CMS interpolates all of that with the extensions that I've built. You can also access Total CMS data from Twig. So like if I want to get all the data from a collection, right? I can be like cms.collection, blah, 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 right? Blog or CMS collection products. And then what that does is that's going to suck in the collection information. Actually, this .collection will import the collection metadata. I don't want to get too much into Total CMS 3 specifics here. But CMS objects, that will bring in basically the entire index. So it'll bring in all of the objects for you to loop through and do all kinds of stuff, right? So yeah, there's a lot of really cool data adapters to extract data from Total CMS. Pretty much, if data's in the CMS, you can get it here, okay? I have a bunch of custom filters. So I have humanize, titleize, base names, truncate. So like to truncate a sentence, right? If you only want a certain number of words, or you want to truncate a paragraph to be a certain number of lines, right? So there's a lot of stuff here that we can do that I've built on top of what Twig has, right? We have a lot of custom stuff for colors. I developed this one actually took quite a long time, custom color extension where you can actually, I know not many people have played with this yet, but you can store colors in Total CMS. And with these twigs, you can be like, take this color and give me like 50% darker, right? All with Twig. It's pretty cool. Some stuff for arrays, some developer stuff. Okay. We have custom functions. Some custom functions. We have the ability to access, if you pass query parameters via the URL, you can actually get all of those query parameters from Twig, right? Which is kind of cool. So here I have an example. We're doing a param name equals value. I would just do get data.param name. So if you would just put in whatever the URL query is here, and that would be get data is basically the extension, and then you'd put, let's say, permalink or ID or sort, or whatever the value you pass to the URL here, you can access it from this. Same thing if you use post data, right? A lot of this is with forms mostly. If you're posting data to different web pages, you can actually access the post data with my post data extension. And lastly, the most recent one is I added session data, which is really cool. Especially if you're using SiteLock, session data, I've added the ability so it actually pulls in all of the SiteLock data as well. So you have access to all SiteLock data from the session data extension in T3, okay, which is pretty cool. So you can do like session data dot site, I forget this, site lock underscore blah, 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 all those variable names that SiteLock has. There's a ton of them. So you can access all of that data directly from session data here. Okay. I'm not going to dive all into the factory, but there's an entire, so if you wanted to display dummy data, you could just use these, right? So if you just wanted to display a random image on a page, boom, it'll randomly generate the image and display it for you. Okay. All on the fly on the page. It's pretty cool. I have QR code generators. So I created this QR code extension. Yeah, pretty cool. QR code is a pro only feature, at this point, right now. Okay. And again, I don't want this to turn into a Total CMS 3 commercial here. But there is a lot of really cool stuff, that I think now that we've looked at maybe feeds, I think maybe some of the stuff in Total CMS 3 will make sense now. Okay. Because I know sometimes, for example, this is looping through a collection. Okay. So we're using this loop stack. And remember, we saw the docs and we saw this for loop, right? For items in items. And then we do this, right? Now let's go back to this loop. Okay. Here I'm doing, so my collection is demo and I have objects. So basically what this is let's say, in this example, let's say my collection is products. Okay. And my loop variable is product. So in this case, it is for product in products. Do this, right? Again, as I said, all of the Total CMS 3 stacks, even this loop stack, all this is a for loop. All that is a Twig for loop. And it is for, in this case, I have products and product. All that is doing is it's doing for product in products. That's all it's doing. Okay. And then this little bad boy right down here, guess what? It's whatever you add into here. Okay. And here I've done, so here, let me put that back because, it was demo and object, right? So here it would have been for object in demo. Okay. So it's looping through all the items inside demo and it's assigning it the variable of object. And just like we had over here where we do, for it was item in items, right? Remember, we have item and then we access the data via item.name. Well, guess what? Because I have object here, we access all the data via object.title, right? Or, there is images are a little bit more complicated, but there is an image stack to help you out to, do all kinds of crazy stuff you can do with the image stack. Okay. But yeah, it's very basic. It is just Twig. Okay. And I can go in here and I can do object title pipe, upper. And now that is now all uppercase, right? So we can do all those cool Twig stuff directly inside of our stacks data. Again, we're just creating a template of what we want to create. Okay. And then later on, we're going to apply data to that template so that it ultimately creates the web page that we want. Okay. Lastly, I to talk about, if you've read my newsletter yesterday, I think it was yesterday. Yeah. I said I was working on a website and I'm just going to close out with this. And I'm working on this site right now. The reason I took on this website, this is the first and maybe the last time, I don't know, me building a website for somebody. Okay. It just happened to be the right place at the right time. The guy asked, and I said, you know what? I kind of need a use case for Total CMS. I want to do it rather than working with other people to do it, right? When you do it yourself, it's just a little bit different, right? So, yeah, now I haven't integrated Total CMS 3 into this site yet. That's actually the very next steps that we're doing, Okay. And I think after I get this whole thing done, I'll probably do some sort of video series, which is, a journey of this particular project and how I did it. Okay. Um, and how but I'll give you a sneak peek of what I did. Okay. And that was, this page, it's 100% static, right? So I'm focused on getting the design finite right now, right? And designing everything how we'd want. Okay. And then if we go to the explore campsites page, like as you see, all these images everything's exactly the same, right? There's no dynamic data here. It's just, I'm just designing everything out, making sure that, the design is what we want. This search and filter form does, what we want. It doesn't work yet, but the design is here. Okay. And well, I haven't gotten the final, approval yet. I think we're pretty darn close, okay, to getting the final approval. But what I've done here is I've created the template for the web pages, right? I've created the template with normal stacks, right? This is bento here, right? With with images. Here's an SVG stack, right? With some icons, and really nothing fancy here, to be honest with you, right? Just some text, with a nice layout. Okay. Future to come, some Google review stuff probably coming to feeds. Right. This is my Google Map stack with rain check, so it loads, delayed load, blah blah blah. Okay. But again, I just created this web page with Foundation 6 and whatever other stacks I wanted. And then now that I finalized the design, and we create the schemas in Total CMS 3 and all that stuff, I'll go back and then basically twigify these designs, okay, using the Total CMS stacks. Or if you were using feeds, you could do something with feeds. Probably not to this level, I'll be honest. Okay, but Total CMS 3, obviously this is going to be a kind of a flagship site for me to show off the power of Total CMS 3, even though some people have already done amazing jobs at that, right? Bill Burden, Davide, Dr. Bob's doing something cool, although his site's private, so he can't really share that publicly. Okay. And I know a bunch of other are. Ben, if you're here, Ben has a really awesome site that manages old school Filipino comic books. And it just has tons in there already. Thousands, I believe. Bill Burden obviously has close to 4,000 stamps for his stamp website. That's all managed with Total CMS. But again, here we're gonna have maybe 200 to 300 websites, or campsites here. But all I've done is created the static pages of what I want my design to look like. And now that that's finalized and we have the data, we're gonna then twigify or Total CMSify this site afterwards. So I thought that was just something interesting to kind of give you guys a sneak peek on kind of what I've done here. Where again, I've created templates for my design, and then I'll take that and convert these actual designs with filler data, okay, to contain the data that will ultimately be replaced with data from Total CMS. Okay. Okay. There we go, guys. That didn't go too far off. I only took an extra 10 minutes of your time, so hopefully you guys got a little bit out of today. Hope you learned a little bit. Hopefully those that are already Twig experts also learned a little bit, hopefully. And if not, repetition is always king, right? So always hearing the same thing over and over. Which reminds me, Hangouts on Fridays, guys. I don't know if any of you here have never been to a Hangout, okay? But if you've never been to a Hangout, I know, especially for those in Europe, it can be late and it's Friday night. But if you could just sacrifice one Friday night to go on, I think it'll be worth it. Like, come with some questions. Well, you'll have a good time. I promise you that. Okay. And we go for quite a few hours. So if you could only come in and either be a fly on the wall, I know that tends to be how people kind of start off. They have their it is live on Zoom, so people tend to join and maybe have their camera off and just kind of are flies on the wall and listening and learning through osmosis. That's okay. Okay. But anyway, I hope you can join us on Fridays. There's a lot of learning going on, and not just from me, right? It's a great place for, a lot of the regulars and people to teach each other and help each other out. And it's a really great place. So I hope you guys can join us there on Fridays. And have a great rest of your week. Go ahead. If you're on YouTube right now, go ahead and like this. Later this year, like the second half of this year, I want to try to revamp my YouTube channel a little bit and try to try to get more subscribers and see if we can grow the channel and hence maybe grow the community a little bit. So if you can just go ahead and if you're not subscribed, to subscribe, like, comment, and all that jazz that all the cool YouTuber guys do. Okay, if you hate the video, hit it twice, right? Hit the down thing twice. That's what they say, right? Okay, guys. Have a great rest of your week. Go out there and make some websites great. Can't wait to see you on Friday. If not, we'll see you on the community and on the live stream next week. Take care. Bye.